One prank by the God of Mischief doomed every single god in Norse mythology. This is the story of how Loki's joke became the apocalypse itself. Picture this. You're at the greatest party in all the 9 realms. Gods are laughing, drinking mead from golden cups, and showing off their incredible powers. The air buzzes with joy and celebration. But in just a few minutes, one cruel trick will turn this perfect moment into the beginning of the end for every god you've ever heard of. Today, we're diving into the deadliest prank in mythology. The moment Loki crossed a line he could never uncross, setting in motion a chain of events that would destroy Asgard forever. If you want to hear more incredible stories from Norse mythology, hit that subscribe button right now. The gods of Asgard thought they were untouchable. They lived in shining halls made of gold and silver. They feasted on meat that never ran out and drank ale that flowed like rivers. Most importantly, they believed nothing could truly harm them. Nothing except each other, that is. At the center of their world stood Balder the Beautiful. Imagine the most perfect person you've ever seen. Then multiply that by 1,000. Balder had skin that glowed like moonlight. His hair shone brighter than spun gold. When he smiled, flowers bloomed. When he laughed, birds sang sweeter songs. Every living thing in the 9 realms loved him. Even his enemies couldn't help but feel warmth in their hearts when they looked at him. But Balder began having terrible dreams. Night after night, he saw his own death. He saw darkness swallowing the light. He saw blood on golden floors. These weren't just nightmares. They were visions of the future. In Norse mythology, dreams of death meant one thing. Your time was running out. Frigga, Balder's mother and Odin's wife, refused to let fate take her son. She was the goddess of love and marriage, but she was also a mother who would do anything to protect her child. Frigga traveled across all 9 realms. She spoke to every living thing, every object, every force of nature. Fire promised not to burn Balder. Water swore never to drown him. Metal vowed never to cut him. Stones pledged never to strike him. Every animal, every plant, every weapon made the same oath. Well, almost every plant. There was one small mistletoe bush growing on an oak tree near Valhalla. It looked so harmless, so tiny and weak, that Frigga thought it couldn't possibly hurt anyone. She didn't bother asking it for an oath. This tiny oversight would doom them all. Word spread quickly through Asgard. Balder was now completely safe. Nothing could hurt him. The gods turned this into a game. They would throw spears at Balder and watch them bounce off harmlessly. They hurled rocks that turned to dust before touching his skin. They shot arrows that changed direction mid-flight. Balder stood in the center of their great hall, laughing as weapons and objects flew at him from every direction. It was the most amazing party trick in divine history. But Loki watched from the shadows, and his heart filled with poison. Loki had always been the outsider. While the other gods were tall and beautiful, he was lean and sharp-faced. While they were loved by all, he was feared and mistrusted. He was clever, perhaps the cleverest of all the gods, but cleverness without love turns bitter. As he watched everyone celebrate Balder's invincibility, jealousy ate away at his soul like acid. Loki's mind began working. There had to be a way to hurt Balder. Frigga was thorough, but she was still just one goddess trying to cover 9 entire realms. She had to have missed something. Something small, something everyone would overlook. Disguising himself as an old woman, Loki hobbled up to Frigga's hall. His bent back and wrinkled face hid his true identity perfectly. In a creaky voice, he spoke to the goddess. "My lady, I've heard the most wonderful news about your son. They say nothing in all the worlds can harm him now." Frigga's face glowed with pride. "It's true, old mother. I traveled to every corner of existence. Everything has sworn an oath to protect my beloved Baldur." "Everything?" Loki pressed, his disguised voice full of wonder. "Surely there must have been something too small or weak to bother with." Frigga paused. For just a moment, doubt flickered in her eyes. "Well, there was one small mistletoe plant growing west of Valhalla. But it was so young and harmless, I saw no need to ask it for an oath." Loki's hidden smile was cold as winter night. "How wise of you, my lady. Such a tiny thing could never hurt a god." The moment Frigga turned away, Loki dropped his disguise and raced to find that mistletoe. His hands shook with excitement as he carved the soft wood into a small dart. Such an innocent-looking weapon, so small it could fit in his palm. But this tiny piece of wood now held the power to kill a god. Back in the Great Hall, the gods continued their game. Baldur stood in the center, arms spread wide, inviting them to try their best shots. Thor threw his mighty hammer. It stopped inches from Baldur's chest and fell harmlessly to the floor. Tyr hurled his sword with deadly accuracy. It turned to flower petals before reaching its target. The gods cheered and laughed with each impossible deflection. But there was one god who didn't participate. Hodor, Baldur's blind brother, sat alone on a bench. His face was sad, left out of the fun because he couldn't see where to aim. His hands fidgeted with frustration. He wanted to join in, to show his love for his brother like everyone else, but his blindness made him helpless. Loki saw his chance. "Hodor, my friend," Loki said, sliding up beside the blind god. His voice dripped with false kindness. "Why aren't you playing the game with your brother?" Hodor's shoulders sagged. "I can't see where he is. I don't want to look foolish throwing things at random." "That's not fair," Loki said, shaking his head with fake sympathy. "You should get to honor Baldur too. Here, I have a small dart. Let me guide your arm. You can be part of the celebration." Hope filled Hodor's face. Finally, he could join in. He could show his love for Baldur just like everyone else. Loki placed the mistletoe dart in Hodor's hand and gently guided his arm back. "Now throw," Loki whispered. The tiny dart flew through the air. It looked so harmless compared to all the mighty weapons that had bounced off Baldur before. Just a small piece of wood, barely visible as it spun toward its target. But this time was different. This time, nothing stopped it. The dart struck Baldur in the chest. For a heartbeat, everything was silent. Baldur looked down at the tiny wooden projectile sticking out of his heart. His perfect face showed confusion rather than pain. How could something so small have reached him when Thor's hammer couldn't? Then Baldur the Beautiful, beloved of gods and men, fell to the golden floor of Asgard, dead. The silence stretched like a held breath. Then Frigga's scream shattered the air. It was a sound of pure agony, the cry of a mother watching her child die. The other gods stared in horror. This was impossible. Nothing could hurt Baldur. Nothing. Hodor dropped to his knees, feeling frantically for his brother's body. "What happened?" Why isn't he getting up? Balder, please get up! But Loki had already slipped away into the crowd. His trick was complete. His jealousy was satisfied. In his mind, he had finally shown everyone that he was cleverer than they were. He had found the one weakness they all missed. He had proven that even the most beloved could fall. But Loki had made a terrible mistake. He thought this was just another prank, another clever trick to embarrass the gods. He didn't understand that killing Balder wasn't just murder. It was the first domino falling in a chain that would destroy everything. The death of Balder triggered Ragnarok, the end of the world. According to the prophecies, when Balder died, it meant the twilight of the gods had begun. Brother would turn against brother. The sun would grow cold. The seas would boil. Giant wolves would devour the moon and stars. And in the final battle, nearly every god would die. All because of one small dart, one moment of jealousy, one prank that went too far. Loki's trick didn't just kill Balder, it doomed Asgard itself. The God of Mischief thought he was being clever, but he had actually written the death sentence for his entire world. Sometimes the smallest actions have the biggest consequences, and sometimes a joke isn't funny at all. Subscribe for more incredible stories from mythology that will blow your mind.